Hey guys, welcome back. It's Missy, and today we're going to be talking about a really painful topic, and that is when you have two narcissistic parents. In the past, I've made a video on having a narcissistic parent and a codependent parent, which I will leave right here, and that is very tough to experience. But I would say something that's much worse than experiencing having a codependent and a narcissistic parent is having two narcissistic parents. Although when you have a codependent and a narcissistic parent, it's terrible because of the dynamic between the two of them, and how your codependent parent is more on the healthy side when it comes to being able to self-reflect, but they don't stand up for you, or they choose their abuser over you, and that's extremely painful. On the other side, when you have two narcissistic parents, you have no parent that can self-reflect. You have two extremely immature, extremely abusive parents. So we're gonna go into that today. But before we get into today's video, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Missy, I'm a life and relationship coach, and on this channel we get to the root of the issue and we learn how to heal and deal. So if that's your thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to be a part of the fam. And if you already are a subscriber, I really appreciate you so much. Also, if you are interested in any of my coaching services, I will leave it down in the link below, which you go ahead and check out. Let's get into today's video. So when you have two narcissistic parents, they lack the ability to give you love, validation, approval, and mirroring. Meaning, when you have an emotion, they can mirror back to you and validate that feeling. So as a child, we are taught how to love ourselves through our parents. And when you have two narcissistic parents, you are severely lacking in that category because they are incapable of giving you those things. Especially because they do the opposite of love, where they torment you, verbally abuse you, emotionally abuse you, pick you apart, push and pull you, and make you feel worthless. So you will feel empty, insecure, and lack confidence in yourself and your own value and worth. See, a loving parent wants to know everything about their child. They want to know their dreams, their goals, their likes and dislikes, their behaviors, their feelings, their thoughts, their hobbies. They nurture their child and validate them, which helps their child see their own value and worth. With narcissistic parents, they see their child as an extension of their own ego, see them as a sense of property, and see the child as something that could benefit them in some sort of way. So usually they'll see what their child can do for them, or they will see their child as a burden. Now this causes that child to grow up with extreme emptiness. So to deal with that emptiness, usually these children, if you're one that had a narcissistic parent, you will either fill this emptiness by people pleasing and seeking the validation and approval of others, and you will deeply seek this love that you never receive, and you'll do that by molding yourself into someone others may like. You won't stand up for yourself, you won't speak up, you just make sure that everyone else is happy, you rid yourself and make sure everyone else is happy, so that way you can feel some sort of positive good feeling, like you are loved in some sort of way. You are so desperately wanting the approval and acceptance of others. Or it can go on the other extreme end, where you overcompensate this deep pain and worthlessness by inflating your fragile ego and then becoming very similar to your parents, or at least adapting some of those character traits, because that's all you really know. One child that has a narcissistic parents may cope with this emptiness by seeking the validation of others, which is codependency, and then another child may cope with this emptiness by measuring their success and achievements and seeing what other people can do for them to fill this emptiness and this hole and these deep shame feelings, which then creates another narcissist. Or it could be, there also is a middle ground where there are some children that self-reflect and they're able to kind of see some negative things they do, but they don't see it unless it's really being pointed out, or they take on some of their parents' unhealthy character traits because that's all they know again, and they don't realize some unhealthy ways they've coped to deal with all of this abuse, and then over time they have to unlearn these unhealthy coping mechanisms. Like maybe they're overly defensive, maybe sometimes they twist reality and they victimize themselves. You know, they'll do these different things that they've learned in order to survive. Maybe they're a little manipulative, they'll do some of these things in order to survive, and they have to unlearn these unhealthy behaviors. Nonetheless, these children, you, if you're someone that grew up with this upbringing, are severely deprived. You are deprived of so many things that children in other homes got to experience, like that love, like that validation, like getting to feel like you were a child with your own mind and your own opinions. You were robbed of being able to have fun or have an imagination or have feelings. You were placed in a role that you shouldn't have been placed in. Also, having narcissistic parents, the way they treat you can change over time. There could be periods of time where they're neglectful. There could be periods of time where they could see you benefit them in some sort of way and they praise you and they acknowledge you. There could be times when they're really brutal and they're mean and they're just screaming at you all the time, or they're always trying to find something wrong with you. The roles you play in their lives can change at any time. It really depends on who is giving them the supply at the time and what type of supply they're looking for. So let's talk about what your dynamic with your parents probably was like when you had two narcissistic parents. So narcissism is something that's so complex, and every single child experiences something very different. But nonetheless, they can relate in some sort of way because it's a similar experience of dealing with their parents' emotional immaturity, their parents' shame, and their parents' abuse. So one thing you may have experienced is both your parents may have been extremely neglectful. So anytime you needed something, you were a problem. You were in the way. It was weird because whenever they needed something, they would have money for it. But when you needed something, you were a problem. Oh, you need money again? I just gave you money last week. Why do you need this? Why do you have to go on that field trip? Ugh, why do you have to go to the doctor? You're completely fine. You always were neglected of your needs. And you were taught that all of their needs matter, and whenever something happens to them, they have to be catered to. But when it comes to yourself, you don't matter. You gotta push it to the side. You get hurt, suck it up. Something bothers you, suck it up. You're hungry and they don't feel like feeding you, suck it up. You have holes in your clothes, suck it up. That's all you're taught, is to just completely neglect yourself like they have neglected you. And you will cope with it one or two ways. You may become very angry and you will hold it in when you're around them, but in other areas of your life, you may lash out. Or you can become extremely passive and then become passive aggressive to others when they upset you or they bother you, or you're terrified of confrontation or conflict, so you try to stay away from many different situations. You will avoid things as much as possible. Overall, the same concept is being ingrained in your brain that you don't have a voice, nothing you do matters, and you are helpless. You feel helpless. So what happens as you get older is you'll be completely disconnected from yourself, and it can be hard for you to attend to your needs, or you've been taught that you can't really trust people and no one will ever have your back. You may have a hard time with authority, and you may be very scared of like your bosses or people that are a little bit more aggressive. So that's the neglectful parents. They will not give you the time of day. They won't look your way when you're doing a cartwheel. They won't look your way when you're trying to show them a picture. They won't have conversations with you, or if they do have conversations with you, it's usually to yell at you or some sort of way and to tell you how wrong you are and how you're a problem. And by the way, the way that your parents treat you can change over time. It's not like they only treated you one way. They can treat you, they can be neglectful or they can be really abusive. It can interchange. So because there's this cycle, there may have been moments in your childhood, or may have been your whole childhood, where both of your parents hated each other and they would have narcissistic attacks at each other. So that means they would fight with each other, and they may have turned it into winning over your love or competing with each other to make you like one or the other parent better. And so that turns into overly enabling you. You may have not really experienced structure or having a lot of rules. They would give in to give you what you wanted, but at the same time, while they're giving you the things you want, they also are putting you in the middle of their fights. And whether it's verbally they're saying it or their subliminal messages, they're making you feel like you have to choose which parent is better. So they will talk to you about how bad each other parent is, and then they're kind of forcing you to pick which parent you like better, and putting you in the middle of things you shouldn't be in the middle of. And you may feel like you need to keep the peace, stop them from fighting, or you'll be forced to pick one parent over the other. And usually you'll pick the parent that is less worse than the other, because there's always one narcissist that's worse than the other, which we're going to go into in a minute. But it's very much confusing as a child, where things are supposed to be about you. They're not supposed to be about your parents, and you're being forced to think about what your parents needs and trying to make your parents happy and thinking about their feelings. And if you don't give them what they want, like for instance, maybe you're not having a good enough time, or you're not being the exact child they want you to be, then you will deal with hell. They will tear you apart. Or if you ever challenge them in any sort of way, again, they're going to tear you apart. They want to be seen as the parent that you like, and they're forcing you to love them. Otherwise, you will get severely punished. You don't have your own feelings. You're not allowed to have boundaries. It's about them and what they want solely. And if you don't praise them, or if you don't show appreciation, or if you don't abide by exactly what they say, you will be tormented, whether it's physically or emotionally or even sexually. So this again teaches you, okay, I can't form my own sense of self. Another thing you may experience when you have two narcissistic parents is one will appear to be the nice narcissist and the other one will appear to be more of the meaner narcissist. And it really just depends how that narcissist supplies their ego and their deep shame. So one narcissist may be more of an altruistic narcissist, a covert narcissist. In public, they're so nice and they show that they're very caring about you in public and they're the greatest parent in the world. But behind closed doors, it's very conditional. When you're doing what they want and you benefit their image in some sort of way, they're really nice. And then when you push them away, or you don't do as you're told, or you don't do exactly what they want, they're incredibly mean. And then you may have a malignant narcissistic parent where they're mean all the time and they solely really care about themselves, and they have a hard time seeing how their actions affect others. And they solely maybe care about their success, or they solely care about their drinking, and they don't show any care about anyone else. So what happens when you have more of this nice narcissist, you'll lean on them more and you'll depend on them more, and you'll look for them to give you comfort when your other narcissistic parent is being really mean. And this will completely gaslight you, because you think that, you know, this malignant narcissist or this meaner narcissist they're solely the bad guy, and then you have this other parent, because your parents is all you know. You don't know any other parents until you maybe leave the house and you see how other people's parents function. You'll see that, you know, maybe this parent is a better parent, and so this parent will take advantage of that and completely manipulate you in so many different ways, and they have the upper hand with how they control you. It's much better to have one nice parent than no parent. So you'll have that cognitive dissonance when they are mistreating you and the covert isn't being a real nice guy. You'll have that cognitive dissonance and you'll say, no, you know what, they're just having a bad day, because you don't want to fathom the possibility that you have two horrible parents. So you'll do whatever it takes to not face that reality. What happens with you is you lose yourself. You don't learn how to really truly trust yourself, because this, you know, covert narcissist, this altruistic covert narcissist is causing you to depend on them, and you learn that you have to solely attend to, you know, their needs and not really your needs. Another thing you may have experienced is during those times when your narcissistic parents were getting along, they would probably gang up on you and use you as a source of supply, where they would say negative things towards you, or they would mock you, or they would say how ungrateful you are, or they would give you these long lectures about how you need to change and you're not a good kid, or that you're not doing good enough. And they'll gang up together and it will be just a tag team of them attacking you, and you'll sit there helpless, not having anyone really to protect you, and there's nothing you really can do. You may cope by getting really angry and yelling at them to get away from you, and that will cause them to be like, you know, you're out of control, but maybe we'll get them off of you. Or You may cope by freezing, so that's more fighting, or you may cope by freezing and not moving, and you're just taking hit after hit after hit. Or another way you may deal with it is you may run, you may avoid, because this causes you to go into that fight, flight, or freeze mode. It's very terrifying to have people that are supposed to be your security, just them together ganging up on you, and you don't know what to do with yourself. These people that are supposed to love you unconditionally are tormenting you, and it can cause deep shame and deep pain, and then you don't know how to cope with these feelings, and it can cause you to internalize, and you'll cope with other unhealthy coping mechanisms like your own addiction. You may cope by going into a lot of different relationships, maybe being very sexually active. You're looking for ways to protect yourself or to numb this pain because it's so incredibly painful having these type of people. So when you have two narcissistic parents, you will either feel like you have to adapt these traits to be more like them to survive, or you feel like you have to rid yourself and, you know, appease them in some sort of way in order to survive. No matter what, you're in a constant survival mode because you have two childlike people in adult bodies that have not resolved their own traumas, and they just carry it on to you. And that's why it's so incredibly painful and something that is so unfair for anyone that experiences that. So if you are someone that you have two narcissistic parents, my heart goes out to you. Doesn't matter what you have done to survive. It doesn't matter if you notice you have some of these unhealthy traits. Kudos to you for being able to identify and recognizing that you have some of these unhealthy traits, or even maybe you have a couple narcissistic traits. You had to take those on in order to survive, and a lot of people would do the same thing in order to survive. It wasn't a choice. So I hope that this video helps and that you don't beat yourself up too much for doing what you had to do in order to survive. So forgive yourself for doing what you had to do. What do you guys think? Leave it all in the comments below. And please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye guys. I'm looking a little orange. You guys don't know this, but the other half of the video is a few hours later because I had other things to do and I had to stop the video. Little behind the scenes secret. Drake's my dad. Drake's my baby daddy. What am I saying? Which is this one? Where's the website?